Backyard weddings are for the poor. My family scoffed and skipped mine. Mom sneered, I'm ashamed of you. Weeks later, our lantern-lit vows went viral, and now they're begging for photos. I gripped the phone, my fingers trembling so hard I thought I might drop it. Because what I was about to tell my mother wasn't just about our wedding, it was about finally choosing myself, and I knew it would shatter everything. Sunlight streamed into my kitchen, but all I felt was a chill. Dorian squeezed my shoulder, his calloused hand a warm anchor against my cotton blouse. His eyes were steady, certain, the complete opposite of the hurricane churning inside me. You don't have to do this now, he whispered. But I did. Our wedding was just 8 weeks away. The invitations sat in a neat stack beside me, addresses carefully printed in my librarian's precise hand. 28 names. 28 people who truly mattered, including my mother. I pressed the phone to my ear, counting the rings. 1, 2, 3. Hello, darling. My mother's voice, Marla Mathis, flowed through the line, cultured and controlled, like everything else about her. Hi, Mom, I managed, taking a deep breath. A maple leaf detached from its branch outside, spinning lazily to the ground. I'm calling about the wedding. Oh. Interest sparked in her tone. After years of her pointed comments about my perpetual singleness, my engagement announcement 6 months prior had been met with her remarkable observation. At least someone will marry you. I cleared my throat. We've finalized our plans. October 12th. Here at the farmhouse. We're keeping it small, 28 guests. The ceremony will be in the backyard, under the maple trees. The silence stretched so long I wondered if the connection had dropped. Mom? A backyard. She said the word like it was something contaminated. Elora, that's not a wedding. That's a picnic for broke people. My chest tightened. We have a budget of $4,700. It's what we can afford, and it's what we want. What you can afford, she repeated my words slowly, a subtle sting in her tone. Your father and I could help, you know. Curran's wedding at the Fairmont cost $60,000, and it was worth every penny. People still talk about it. Of course they do. My sister's perfect Boston hotel wedding 3 years ago, where I was assigned to help the catering staff rather than stand with my own family. We don't want a big production, I said, gripping the edge of the table. We want something authentic. Something that feels like us. Another pause. And what exactly does that mean? Mismatched chairs and paper plates. I glanced at Dorian, who was sketching something on a scrap of paper. Ceramic plates, I realized, with initials carefully glazed onto each one. It means handmade touches, things with meaning. My voice strengthened. We're writing our own vows. Claire is helping with decorations. We're stringing lights through the maples. Lights in trees. Her voice dropped 10 degrees. Elora, this is exactly why I worried when you moved to that little town. You've lost all sense of propriety. The word stung. Propriety. The guiding star of my entire childhood. I'm sorry you feel that way. I managed. Well, she sniffed. I suppose you've made up your mind. We have. Then I don't know what you expect me to say. A backyard wedding isn't something we can attend. The words hit like a physical blow. You won't come. Don't be dramatic, Elora. We have standards. And if you choose to ignore them, that's your decision. The line went dead before I could respond. I placed the phone down carefully, as if it might shatter. Or maybe I was the one about to break. The maple trees outside blurred through a film of tears. She's not coming, I whispered. Not because she's sick or busy. Because it's not fancy enough. Dorian knelt beside me, taking my hands in his. Elle, I'm so sorry. All these years, I said, my voice catching. Always trying to be good enough. Always falling short of Corinne. And now this. A tear slid down my cheek, landing on our guest list, blurring my mother's carefully printed name. This is our wedding, Dorian said quietly. Not hers. I looked up at him. At the man who proposed under these very maple trees. Who spends evenings throwing clay on his potter's wheel. Who reads poetry aloud while I cook dinner. Who never once Asked me to be anything but exactly who I am. You're right. I wiped my eyes. It's our wedding. He reached into his pocket, pulling out a folded piece of paper. I've been working on my vows, he admitted, a flush creeping up his neck. Something shifted inside me. A door closing, yes. But perhaps a window opening, too. I reached for the phone again, this time dialing Claire's number. Hey, I said when she answered. I need your help with something. Tell me what you need, she responded without hesitation. I glanced at the framed photo of my mother on the bookshelf. Her perpetually disapproving expression. Watching me. With deliberate movements, I walked over and placed it face down. Everything, I said, surprising myself with the steadiness in my voice. We're doing this our way. The next day, the attic smelled like cedar and forgotten promises. Sunlight sliced through the single round window, illuminating dust motes that danced around me as I pulled down the cardboard. Box marked Corinne's wedding. I hadn't meant to find it. I was just searching for extra mason jars for our lanterns, but there it sat. Pristine white with gold lettering, as meticulously labeled as everything else in my mother's world. I hesitated, fingers hovering over the lid. 3 years since. That weekend at the Fairmont. 3 years since I, wearing the black dress my mother selected, carried trays of champagne flutes because it would be helpful. Found anything useful up there? Dorian called from below. Just looking through some things, I answered, already lifting the lid. Inside, the wedding album rested on top, bound in white leather with Corinne and Bradley's names embossed in gold. I opened it, slowly, as if it might bite. The first page showed the bride and groom beneath crystal chandeliers, surrounded by white roses and candlelight. Corinne looked flawless in her designer gown, my father beaming beside her. I turned pages methodically. Family portraits, table arrangements, the 8-tier cake that cost more than my car. Page after page of smiling Mathises. Not one photo contained my face. I closed the album, set it aside. Beneath it lay loose photograph extras that didn't make the final cut. I rifled through them until I spotted myself in the background of one, balancing a tray of champagne flutes, while Corinne tossed her bouquet. My smile looked plastic, my eyes vacant. Something fluttered from between the photos, a small note card in my mother's elegant handwriting. I unfolded it carefully. Stay useful, not visible. For words, addressed to me. The morning of the wedding. My chest tightened until breathing became a conscious effort. I'd always known my place in the family hierarchy, but seeing it spelled out so plainly made my stomach twist. L? Dorian's footsteps creaked up the attic stairs. You okay up here? I wanted to hide the evidence, to protect him from this ugliness, but my hands wouldn't move. He crossed the dusty floorboards, knelt beside me, and read the note over my shoulder. Jesus, he whispered. Pretty clear instructions, right? My laugh sounded hollow. Guess I followed them perfectly. He took the note, studied it. Your mother wrote this? To you. I nodded. Corinne's wedding. The $60,000 extravaganza. I picked up the photo where I lurked in the background. I'm right there, doing exactly what I was told. Useful. Invisible. Dorian's jaw tightened. He placed a warm hand on my back, tracing small circles between my shoulder blades. I used to think if I just tried harder, she would. My voice broke. But it was never about what I did. It was about who I am. My phone buzzed from my pocket. I pulled it out, read the text from Corinne. Asterisk mom says you're still doing that backyard thing. Asterisk, I turned the screen toward Dorian. He read it, sighed. They're talking. About us, I said. About our sad little wedding. L? Maybe she's right. The words tumbled out before I could stop them. Maybe it will look cheap. Maybe people will be embarrassed for us. Stop. Dorian took my hands. This isn't about them. But doubt had already burrowed deep. I saw our makeshift plans through my mother's eyes, mismatched chairs, homemade decorations, ceramic plates instead of fine china. The family grapevine buzzing with pity. The front door slammed downstairs, followed by Claire's voice. Hello? Anyone home? I brought fabric. Samples. Up here. Dorian called, never taking his eyes from mine. Claire appeared at the top of the stairs, arms laden with books and swatches. She stopped when she saw my face. What happened? She dropped. Everything, rushed to my side. I wordlessly handed her the note. I watched her read it. Saw the flash of anger in her eyes. That woman, she said, voice tight. She wrapped an arm around my shoulders. Honey, this is exactly why your wedding should be everything she isn't. Warm, authentic, beautiful in ways she can't understand. But what if? Thomas called this morning, she interrupted. He wants to photograph your wedding as his gift to you. I blinked. Thomas Keller? The one who shoots for Vermont Life. She nodded. Says your maple trees deserve to be immortalized. We can't afford. Gift, she repeated firmly. No arguments. Dorian squeezed my hand. This will be more beautiful than anything they could imagine, because it's real. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Corinne. Asterisk mom's right. No one wants to see a wedding in someone's yard. Asterisk I set the phone face down on the floor. Emma called too, Claire continued, picking up her scattered fabric samples. She wants to film the ceremony, says it's exactly the kind of authentic celebration she loves documenting. A lump formed in my throat. Why is everyone being so kind? Because you matter to them, Dorian said simply. You matter to us. Later that night, after Claire left with plans to return tomorrow, I found Dorian at the kitchen table, surrounded by budget spreadsheets. Red marks slashed through items we'd cut, numbers recalculated again and again. What if we just eloped? I asked, my voice small in the quiet kitchen. Just us, somewhere simple, no fuss, no disappointment. He looked up, eyes tired but determined. Is that what you want? Truly? I thought about our maple trees, about Thomas's photographs and Emma's camera, about Claire's determination to help create something beautiful. I thought about the people who said yes without hesitation. No, I admitted, but I'm scared. Of what? That she's right. I gestured to the spreadsheets. That this is pathetic, that we're fooling ourselves. Dorian stood, crossed to me, framed my face in his hands. Listen to me. The only pathetic thing would be letting someone else define what our day should be. I leaned into his touch, closed my eyes. We're getting married under those maple trees, he said, and it's going to be perfect, not because it's expensive, but because it's ours. The certainty in his voice steadied me, even as my mother's note burned in my memory. Stay useful, not visible, but maybe, just maybe, it was time to be seen. A week later, the ivory invitation lay on my kitchen table like a pristine response card, my mother's handwriting slashed in blue ink. We have standards, not even the courtesy of checking the regretfully declined box. Just those 3 words, sharp as broken glass. Dorian found me staring at it, my fingertips tracing the jagged letters. You okay? He asked, setting down his coffee mug. I folded the card carefully, tucking it back into its envelope. Fine. But I wasn't fine. The words burrowed under my skin, took root there. We have standards, as if love required chandeliers and champagne fountains to be legitimate. My phone buzzed with Corinne's name on the screen. I considered letting it go to voicemail, but old habits die hard. Hi, Corinne. L. Her voice carried that familiar note of concern tinged with judgment. Mom told me about your plans. I pressed my lips together, waiting. Look, I know you and Dorian are watching pennies, but William and I could help with a real venue if you're struggling. Nothing extravagant, just somewhere proper. The word struck like a match. Proper. The Mathis family battle cry. We're not struggling, I said, watching a chickadee land on the bird feeder outside. This is what we want. Mom says you're making lanterns from old pickle jars. She didn't try to hide her horror. Mason jars. And yes, we've made 83 so far. Oh, Elora. The same tone Mother uses, perfectly mimicked. People will talk. Let them. After we hung up, I learned they already were talking. Emma, who cuts hair at the salon where Mother gets her monthly color touch-up, called to warn me. Your mom was telling everyone you couldn't manage a proper wedding, she reported. Said something about how some girls just don't understand presentation is everything. I thanked her for the warning, hung up, and promptly threw my phone across the room. It bounced harmlessly off the sofa cushions. Dorian didn't say a word, just retrieved it and placed it on the counter, then wrapped his arms around me from behind. His potter's hands left traces of clay on my cotton shirt. I didn't care. I finished the R plates last night, he murmured into my hair. Starting on the SZ batch. Tonight, each guest would receive a handmade ceramic plate with their initial glazed in forest green. Dorian had been working on them for weeks, his hands cracked and dry from the clay. You should rest, I told him. I'll rest after the wedding. He kissed my temple. How many more lanterns do we need? 17. Claire's coming over to help. Claire arrived an hour later with 3 boxes of mason jars rescued from her grandmother's basement. We worked at the kitchen table, wrapping copper wire around the rims, attaching delicate handles. Did you hear from your mother? She asked, not looking up from her work. Got the invitation back, with a note. Bad? You could say that. Claire's hands stilled. Want me to egg her, Lexus? I know where she gets her hair done. For the first time that day, I laughed. Tempting. We'd finished 5 more lanterns when Thomas knocked on the back door. Our 70-year-old neighbor stood on the porch holding a wooden ladder and coils of tiny white lights. Thought we might start on those trees, he said, nodding toward the maples. Weather's holding good this week. Before I could answer, 2 more trucks pulled into our gravel driveway. Bill from the hardware store and his teenage sons piled out, carrying more ladders and extension cords. Thomas said you needed some tall fellows for tree duty, Bill called, waving. I looked at Claire, who shrugged innocently. I may have mentioned something at the diner yesterday. For the next 3 hours, our backyard transformed. Lights wove through branches like stars caught in a net. The boys scrambled up and down ladders while Thomas directed traffic from below. Claire and I hung finished lanterns from the lower branches. Inside, Dorian shaped wet clay on his wheel, forming the last batch of plates. His forearms were flecked with dried clay, his eyes focused and tired. My phone pinged with a text from Corinne. A photo appeared, my mother's living room wall where family photos hung in perfect symmetry. The space where my childhood portrait once hung now showed only wallpaper, slightly brighter than the surrounding area. No message. None needed. Claire found me staring at the phone, my hands trembling. What happened? I showed her the picture. She took down my photo. Claire's face hardened. That's cruel. That's Mother L. We were interrupted by the sound of tires on gravel. Through the kitchen window, I watched a silver Lexus pull up. My stomach dropped. She's here, I whispered. Marla Mathis emerged from her car like a general inspecting enemy territory. Cashmere sweater, pearl earrings, leather driving gloves. She surveyed the yard, the men on ladders, the lights, the mason jar lanterns, with narrowed eyes. I stepped onto the porch, arms crossed over my chest. Mother, this is unexpected. Clearly. Her gaze shifted to the ceramic plates drying on a table near the shed. I needed to see for myself. See what? This situation. She gestured vaguely at our preparations. Oh, Elora. This is exactly what I feared. The familiar weight of her disappointment settled on my shoulders. For a moment, I was 12 again, showing her my poetry award while she frowned at the morbid theme. But then I looked past her to what she was dismissing. Thomas carefully wrapping lights around a branch. Bill's sons laughing as they untangle cords. Claire watching protectively from the kitchen window. Dorian, through the studio window, hands covered in clay as he created something beautiful. For people he loved. I straightened my spine. This wedding isn't about impressing people, I said, my voice steady. It's about loving them. Mother's mouth tightened. People will judge, Elora. They always do. Not the people who matter. She turned back toward her car, pausing with her hand on the door. For a moment, I thought she might turn back, might offer something more. But she doesn't. Don't expect us to pretend this is normal when people ask. After she left, I stood frozen on the porch until Claire brought me a mug of tea. You okay? No, I admitted. But I will be. That evening, friends arrived with casserole dishes and slow cookers, testing reception recipes. They said, Emma brought her camera, taking test shots as the lanterns began to glow in the dusk. I turned down my cousin's wedding to be here for yours, Claire confessed as we hung the last lantern. She was furious, but this matters more. Later, I found Dorian asleep at his wheel at 3 a.m., the final plate drying beside him. Z for Zachary, our librarian colleague who reads to the children every Thursday. I covered Dorian with a blanket, touched the plate's smooth rim. His hands made this. Our friends hung those lights. Claire twisted wire for lanterns until her fingers bled. Outside, Emma adjusted her tripod in the moonlight. What are you doing? I asked through the screen door. Testing night angles, she said, not looking up from her viewfinder. I'll capture the beauty others refused to see. In the silver darkness, our maple trees stood dressed in tiny stars, patient, as they'd always been. Under their branches, something authentic took shape, not perfect, not conventional, but honest in ways Mother would never understand. I reached for a lantern, its glass cool against my palm. Inside, the tea light flickered, sending shadows dancing across my skin. Maybe we didn't need crystal chandeliers after all. On the wedding day, morning arrived in a whisper of gold. I stood at my bedroom window, watching October sunlight filter through maple leaves that had transformed overnight into a canopy of amber and crimson. 8 weeks of planning, doubting, and stubbornly creating culminated today. You ready? Claire appeared in the doorway, holding my linen dress. Not white, cream with subtle gold threading that caught the light when I moved. And pockets. The dress had pockets. I think I am. My voice sounded steadier than I expected. Through the window, I watched our friends arranging the last of the mismatched vintage chairs on the lawn. Thomas adjusted his camera settings, while Emma tested angles for her video. Neighbors strung the final lanterns through trees that had witnessed every season of my life with Dorian. Each glass jar caught sunlight, promising to glow like captured stars after sunset. My phone buzzed. A text from Corinne. *, hope your backyard thing works out. Mom's telling everyone. You eloped. *, I placed the phone face down on my dresser and stepped into my dress. No shoes? Claire asked, noticing my bare feet. I wiggled my toes against the worn floorboards. The maple leaves will be my carpet. Dorian's downstairs, she added. He had disappeared, a tradition he'd insisted on, though nothing else about this day followed convention. Through the kitchen window, I glimpsed the table set with his handmade plates, each glazed with a guest's initials. 80 hours of work for 28. Place settings. Thomas knocked softly. 5 minutes, Elora. I nodded, suddenly unable to speak. Claire squeezed my hands, then slipped outside to take her place. I stood alone in the kitchen where, 2 months ago, I had weathered my mother's rejection. The space felt different now, lighter somehow. The first notes of music drifted through the open window, not the traditional wedding march, but a simple guitar melody played by Dorian's cousin. My cue. I stepped onto the back porch. The world narrowed to a path of scattered maple leaves leading to the oldest tree in our yard, where Dorian waited. The faces turning toward me belonged to people who said yes. Who showed up? Who helped string lanterns and arrange flowers and bake pies for our dessert table. With each step across the cool grass, something settled inside me. The weight of seeking approval fell away like autumn leaves. Dorian's eyes found mine. His smile broke open something in my chest. The ceremony unfolded in moments that felt both fleeting and eternal. Dorian's voice broke as he said, "You make me feel like I came home." The hand-fasting ribbon, embroidered by Claire with our initials and the date, wrapped around our joined hands. Simple gold bands exchanged ownership beneath branches that had already witnessed our story unfold. After, we ate at long tables pushed together. Platters passed from hand to hand, hearty stews in enamel pots, fresh bread still warm from neighbors' ovens, vegetables from gardens down the road. Laughter rippled across our gathering. No assigned seating, no formal speeches, just genuine connection. As twilight softened the edges of our world, the lanterns glowed to life. Emma moved among us with her camera, capturing moments I was too overwhelmed to fully absorb, Thomas spinning Claire beneath a canopy of lights, Dorian's father raising a toast with tears in his eyes, our librarian friends dancing barefoot on grass, still warm from the afternoon sun. Later, much later, when most guests had gone and just our closest circle remained, Emma showed me a clip on her camera screen. "I'm putting together something simple," she said, "just 75 seconds." The video played, golden light filtering through leaves, Dorian's face as I walked toward him, the laughter erupting when our elderly neighbor tossed handfuls of maple seeds instead of rice. The entire day distilled to its essence. "What will you call it?" I asked. Emma shrugged. "The 12th of October. Backyard. Ours." I nodded. No further explanation needed. 2 days later, while Dorian and I drank coffee on our porch, my phone buzzed with a notification. Emma had posted the video. I clicked the link without expectation, without agenda, just to revisit our day. The number beneath the video read 3,782 views. By evening, it was 12,400. I woke the next morning to 30,000 views and comments flooding in faster than I could read them. "This is what a wedding should be, love, not show. I cried watching this. Asterisk so much more meaningful than the $50,000 production my daughter wanted. Asterisk asterisk the maple trees, the lanterns, the homemade everything. This is stunning. Asterisk." My phone rang, an unknown number. "Is this Alora Mathis?" a woman asked. "From the maple tree wedding video." "Yes. I'm calling from Genuine Life magazine. We'd like to feature your wedding in our intentional living section. The authenticity is exactly what our readers are looking for." I sank onto the porch steps, watching another maple leaf spiral toward the ground. Alora, Dorian appeared in the doorway, coffee mug in hand. "Everything okay?" I showed him my screen, where notifications continued to appear. "Our wedding's gone viral." His eyebrows lifted. "Viral? Like a disease?" I laughed, the sound bubbling up from somewhere deep and unburdened. "Like something contagious. Something people want to catch." Another notification popped up, a wedding planning service, requesting to share our intentional authenticity approach. The irony wasn't lost on me. The wedding my mother deemed too humble for her attendance had now been viewed by strangers who found it beautiful. Exactly as it was. Exactly as we created it. A text from an unknown number appeared. Asterisk, just saw your wedding video. Is that really your backyard? It looks like something from a magazine. Asterisk, I recognize the area code. Boston. One of my mother's friends, perhaps. The maple trees stood silent witness as I tilted my face toward the morning sun and smiled. My phone buzzed across the kitchen counter at 7:36 a.m., 3 days after our wedding video went viral. 30,000 views became 100,000 overnight. Now the count hovered near 500,000. "Are you going to answer that?" Dorian asked, sliding a mug of Earl Grey toward me. I flipped my phone over. Curran's name flashed on the screen, her first direct contact in months. The message, "Why didn't you tell us it would be that beautiful?" The message sat like a stone in my stomach. No congratulations, no apology, just accusation wrapped in compliment paper. What does she want? Dorian didn't mask the edge in his voice. His protectiveness had sharpened. Since the wedding. I slid the phone toward him. Apparently, I was supposed to advertise that our wedding wouldn't embarrass them. As if that would have changed anything. He wrapped his fingers around his coffee mug. The ceramic bore his thumbprint in glaze, evidence of its creator. My phone buzzed again. This time, a voicemail notification. My mother. I pressed play, setting it on. Speaker between us. Alora. Her voice filled our kitchen, brittle and strained. "I've had 3 Calls this morning. People asking why we weren't at such a meaningful ceremony. You've made us look terrible. Call me back. Click. No goodbye. Dorian reached across the table, his hand covering mine. You don't owe her a response. I know. But the old pull remained, that invisible thread yanking me toward their approval. 20 years of conditioning doesn't vanish in one autumn day. Throughout the morning, the messages piled up. Family friends, my mother's college roommate, even my father's secretary. By noon, an email arrived from my mother, subject line, proposal. Alora. Given the unexpected attention your event has received, I suggest we arrange to recreate some key photos with family present. We could use the same backdrop and lighting. I'm available next Saturday. Mother, asterisk. I read it twice, then handed my phone to Emma, who had arrived 20 minutes ago to show us the raw wedding footage. Holy shit, Emma whispered, eyes widening behind tortoiseshell glasses. She wants a do-over? Like your wedding was a school picture with a hair out of place. She doesn't want a do-over, I said, the realization settling over me like autumn frost. She wants to rewrite history. Emma set down her laptop on our coffee table. What are you going to tell her? The truth. I took the phone back, typing my response with steady fingers. Asterisk mother. The wedding happened as it was meant to. There will be no recreations. Alora, asterisk. I pressed send before I could second guess myself. Emma watched me with quiet curiosity. You okay? No. I looked at the wedding video paused on her laptop screen, maple leaves falling around us as we said our vows. But I will be. Actually, I have an idea. I'm listening. She leaned forward. I want you to set up a private screening. Here, in our living room. The full, unedited wedding video. Emma's eyebrows lifted. For your mom. Yes. I turned to Dorian, who had moved to stand behind me. I won't ask for an apology. I just want her to see what she chose to miss. He squeezed my shoulder. Are you sure? No, I admitted. But I need to do this anyway. 3 days later, Emma arranged chairs in our living room. Nothing fancy, just 4 mismatched seats. Facing the wall where she'd hung a projection screen. The projector hummed softly on the bookshelf. She'll be here in 10 minutes, I said, checking my watch for the 4th time. If she comes at all, Dorian murmured. But at 2:10 p.m., exactly 10 minutes late, Mother's silver Lexus pulled into our gravel driveway. She emerged wearing a dove gray suit and pearls, as if arriving for a business meeting. Her hair reflected white gold in the autumn sunlight. She dressed up to watch a video in our living room, I whispered to Dorian. Of course she did. He kissed my temple before retreating to his pottery studio. This was my battle, but knowing he was nearby gave me strength. My mother entered without waiting for an invitation, her gaze sweeping our modest living room. Hello, Alora. Mom. I gestured to the chairs. Thank you for coming. She sat primly, back straight, handbag perched on her lap. I assume this won't take long. Emma caught my eye, then dimmed the lights and pressed play. The screen filled with autumn leaves, the sound of footsteps crunching through our yard. The camera captured guests arriving, the quiet buzz of conversation. The maple trees standing like sentinels against the October sky. My mother's posture remained rigid for the first 10 minutes. But when the ceremony began, something shifted. Her hands clasped and unclasped in her lap. The camera panned across faces, friends weeping, smiling, present in every sense of the word. Then Dorian's voice, clear despite the breeze rustling. Through maple leaves, Alora, you make me feel like I came home. A small sound escaped my mother's throat. When the lanterns glowed golden as daylight fades, I noticed her leaning forward slightly. The dancing began, bare feet on worn wooden boards laid across our lawn, laughter swelling like music. The video ended with Dorian and me silhouetted against the trees, his forehead pressed to mine. Emma slipped out silently as the screen went dark. It looked expensive, my mother whispered finally. It wasn't. I turned to face her directly. You never cared to find out. She stood, smoothing invisible wrinkles from her suit. I didn't know it would be beautiful. That's the point, I said quietly. You decided what it would be without seeing it first. She walked to the door, pausing with her hand on the knob. For a moment, I thought she might turn back. Might offer something more. But she didn't. The door closed behind her with a soft click. I sat, alone in the dim room, surrounded by the ghosts of our wedding day, feeling something between grief and freedom. And I understood, finally, that some doors close so others can open. I breathed in the spring air as Dorian hung the last strand of white lights across our porch railing. 5 months had passed since our wedding day. 5 months of silence from my family. Perfect, I said. Our first spring season as husband and wife unfolded without the familiar tension of family obligations. The absence ached less than I expected. Dorian stepped back, surveying his work. The Carlsons should be here around 7. Claire's bringing that mulled wine you like. I nodded, smiling at the thought of our small gathering. Tonight. Not the traditional family gathering I once craved, but something truer. People who showed up when it mattered most. Inside, our wedding photos line the hallway, moments captured by Thomas's careful eye, Dorian spinning me under maple branches, Claire laughing as she catches my bouquet. 28 faces, glowing in lantern light. Have you seen the letter? Dorian asked, shaking snow from his boots. I handed him the crisp envelope that arrived yesterday. Emma's documentary about our wedding, Authenticity, a Wedding Story, had been selected for the Green Mountain Film Festival. A small triumph, but sweet. She captured something real, Dorian said, hanging his coat. Something people respond to. I ran my fingers over the ceramic plate he made me for last Christmas, my initials glazed in deep forest green. Mom would hate that our wedding is becoming known as some statement piece. Does that bother you? I considered this. No, not anymore. The kitchen timer chimed. As I pulled ginger snaps from the oven, I realized I hadn't checked my phone for messages from my mother in weeks. The compulsion to seek her approval had quietly slipped away, like ice melting from branches in spring. Later, as Claire helped me arrange pine boughs on the mantel, she studied my face. You stand taller now, she observed. Dorian said the same thing last week. I paused, caught off guard by the simple truth of it. The constant hunch of anticipating criticism had straightened from my spine. I guess I do. The afternoon light faded early, turning our windows into mirrors. I caught my reflection, cheeks flushed from the kitchen heat, hair pulled back simply. I looked ordinary. Content free. The package arrived as dusk settled, left on our porch without a knock. No return address, just my name and handwriting I recognized immediately. I opened it alone in our bedroom, fingers trembling slightly. Inside lay a single photograph I'd never seen before, from Corinne's wedding 3 years ago. There I was, in the background, balancing a tray of champagne flutes, watching from the periphery while my family posed for the photographer. I turned it over. On the back, in my sister's precise handwriting, asterisk, I looked right past you that day. I see you now, asterisk, no apology, no request to reconnect, just the submission, bare and unadorned. I sat with it a long time, the weight of it in my hands. Then I walked to our bookshelf and slid the photo into the back of our wedding album. Behind it, I placed my favorite image from our day. Dorian and me dancing barefoot under the lanterns, maple leaves scattered around our feet. The doorbell rang, voices filled our home. I closed the album and returned to the party, to the people who chose to see us from the beginning. On our first anniversary, I watched our wedding video alone. My reflection overlaid the screen, a woman who has found her worth not in grand hotels or expensive linens, but in the courage to be fully seen. I turned off the television and walked outside to where Dorian hung new lanterns for our anniversary dinner. The January sky stretched clear and limitless above us. Ready? He asked, extending his hand. I took it, no longer looking back. A wedding isn't made by fancy venues or who shows up, it's made by who stays. And sometimes, the deepest healing doesn't come from being forgiven. It comes from finally being seen.